So I was reading Surah Al Imran in the Quran, and in Surah Al Imran, Allah is describing what happened in the Battle of Uhud, and right after describing what happened at Uhud, Allah commands the believer, "Do not eat riba," which which makes a person think, why did Allah command? Why did Allah say, stay away from riba, do not eat riba, do not consume riba, interest usually, in middle of a battleground, in middle of a battle story. So to understand this, let's talk about what happened at Uhud for a while. The Battle of Uhud was fought in the time of a Prophet alayhi salatu wassalam, where the Quraysh were marching against the Muslims towards Medina, and the Quraysh were large in number, very large in number, and Muslims were very few in number. So the Prophet ﷺ took the companions radiallahu ta'ala anhum ajma'in outside Medina near Mount Uhud, and he ﷺ asked some of the companions radiallahu ta'ala anhum ajma'in to take the position of an archer and guard the back, rear of the army. Initially, Muslims were winning this war, this battle, and the Quraysh started running back. And when your enemy in a battle runs, he leaves his belonging in the battleground only. And the belongings at that time were literally the swords, the shields, the horses, and other stuff. And these were expensive items back then. So by seeing this, some of the archers who were guarding the back of the army, they left their position. They left their position to collect the spoils of the war. And the Quraysh, the enemies, saw this and they attacked from behind. And the battle, which Muslims were winning initially, turned to be a catastrophe. Our Prophet ﷺ was injured. 70 of the companions were killed, and this battle, was which was almost won by the Muslims, became a wound for Muslims in history. So this is what happened at Uhud. And right after describing this, Allah commands the believers, stay away from riba. Makes a person think, why is Allah commanding to s- to not consume interest or usury in middle of a battle story? And see the archers who left their position guarding the back of the army for the spoils of the war. They saw, how should I frame it? How should I say it? They saw some worldly benefit in front of them. That's what we can say. They saw some worldly benefit in front of them, and they left their position as an archer, and they went to collect the spoils of the war. What happened in interest, when we deal in interest, when if what happened when we start consuming interest, we are turning a winning situation into a catastrophe. Like initially, Muslims were winning the battle at Mount, uh, winning the battle at Uhud, exactly same way. As long as Muslims don't consume, and humanity as whole don't consume interest, they'll be winning. There will be stability in the society. There will be equality in the society. There will be no hierarchy. There will be no income distribution where rich are getting rich and poor are getting poor. Where you don't have the equal opportunities for everyone. Where there are corrupt politicians. Where there are corruption, and all kind of stuff which we see around the world today. As long as we don't consume interest and riba, we can protect ourselves from these catastrophe. But as the moment we start engaging in such transaction for some worldly gains, for the benefit we are seeing upfront, that I'm investing, I am giving $1,000 amount, and I am almost getting 10% back as an interest. That's a lot of money. Yeah, that 10% which you might get on your $1,000 bill can give you some immediate worldly gain, but in the long run, it will destroy you and your society. Look at what's happening in America right now. The citizens of United States are collectively in debt. How much? Approx $30 trillion. $30 trillion. That's the collective debt the citizens of United States are in. Look at the condition of the housing market. The prices of the houses are skyrocketing to a level where people are not able to afford houses anymore. Mortgage loan, home loans, one of the biggest issue. Then look at the the interest rate, which are getting higher and higher. People are using people are using credit card. Again, collectively, United States, the people of United States are in approximately $1.23 trillion in debt of credit card, and the interest rates are rising. They're not slowing down; they're rising. Look at the students' loan, payday loan, all kind of all kind of transactions. The banks are lending you money, raising the interest rates, and the income of the people, the income of the average person is not rising proportionate to the rising interest rate. The repayments are getting higher and higher, and people have to take another loan just to repay the loan which they took before. And it's just a cycle which people are trapped in. Student loan. I mean, young lads are starting their career by going into debt. And yes, they might structure and scheme the loans in beautiful way that we are not going to charge interest for this day and that day and that and this and that and all those nonsense. Allah commands when societies, when people start consuming interest, start eating interest, that society will inevitably fall, collapse, and it will be a catastrophe like it was a catastrophe at Uhud. And we are seeing this right now. Look around you, especially the Americans. $30 trillion in debt collectively. The housing market is it's what do I say? It's on fire. Students can't go to colleges until they take the loan. When they take the loan, they're trapped into a loan cycle. After they get a job, if they get a job, that job is not the income. Their income is not proportionate to the rising interest rate. Now, the big chunk of their monthly income is going into repaying the student loan. They're not able to buy a home because the housing market has skyrocketed. They're not able to start their own family. They're not able to start their own businesses. I mean, what else do you want it to call other than a catastrophe? Is this not a catastrophe? The banks are benefiting. The banks keep benefiting by lending money on interest. What do you think wars are doing? What do you think Gaza? What do you think is happening in Gaza right now? The so-called Israel cannot prolong, continue its war if it doesn't get money. And where do you think that money is coming from? U.S. aid, United States aid, which the U.S. keeps giving every year, somewhere around $8 to $9 billion. The banks are lending money. JP Morgan Chase and other banks. They are lending money to Israel. And how are they doing that? See, in these situations, in the war situations, the government they issue bonds, bonds bonds. They issue bonds. An investor buy those bonds. What are those bonds? They're literally you can say a paper promise that give us money, and the money which you will give us will return that money with interest to you. And now investors, people are giving money for what? So that they can earn more interest. What is the person who is taking the money doing? Committing genocide. The US government is involved in this, the banks are involved in this, the corporations are involved in this. There are many corporations involved in this, from tech to military to, I don't know. Just for mere worldly benefits, some worldly benefits, you are lending money to a government which is committing genocide. And you are giving that government more and more money so that it keeps committing genocide. And what will you get in return? High interest rate. ROI, return on investment. That's what you're gonna get. That's maybe that's one of the reason why Allah commands believers stay away from eating, consuming riba, interest, usually. Don't fall into the small worldly benefit trap, because the situation which is right now in a win can turn into a catastrophe. Look around the globe. Look at what happened in World War I, World War II. Just look at what happened at World War I. Can the war have prolonged for so many years if the governments didn't got money? No, they couldn't. They got the money on interest. In return, what did the governments do? They keep prolonging the war. What happened? Catastrophe. World War I was the reason of the rise of Hitler, of the Nazis. And it's not a new phenomena. It has this kind of thing has been happening since centuries, from the state of Babylonia, Rome, Greece, from the British Empire till today, what we are seeing in Gaza. That's why Allah doesn't just commands to not engage, to not eat, to not consume interest. Rather, Allah also give us an alternative. What do you do with your money? Allah commands that invest your money in asset-backed transactions. What are asset-backed transactions? Invest your money in land, in corporation, in services. Invest your money in something which is productive. Money earned on money is not allowed in Islam, because soon that money earned on money will become a catastrophe. Look at the global atmosphere right now. The rich are getting rich. How? By lending money on interest. They don't care what you are doing, how we are going to repay the loans. They don't care about that. They just lended money, and now they want their money with interest. That's how the rich get rich and the poor remains poor. There's so many YouTube videos where they're saying this is how the 1% remains rich, and this is how average mediocre remains poor. The rich have these habits, these 5 habits, and the poor do these things. Stupid nonsense. Abolish, destroy interest, and all this 1% which you see, the elite group which you see, will evaporate. You will see stability, you'll see equal opportunity for everyone. And that's why Allah say that get engaged with asset backed transactions. Your transactions must be backed by assets. They shouldn't be backed by interest. Buy land, buy gold, buy silver. Invest in something which is productive, not just fake promises. Recall what happened in the 2008 financial crisis. Mortgage-backed securities, right? For those of you who know, the banks were lending money for people to buy homes. The prices of homes were rising and rising and rising beyond what their actual value was, and then the bank collected all those loans and sold it to the investors outside. which they called mortgage-backed securities. Means those mortgage-backed securities literally meant that whatever the banks are selling are backed by these houses. So people are not just buying the loans; people are also their loans is protected by the property. If default started happening, we can just take over the property because and the value of the property is rising high. What happened? What happened in 2008? The value of the homes started going down. Default started happening. People stopped paying loan. Why? Because the value of the home is not rising anymore. So why pay the loan? So why pay the sorry, why pay the repayments? The homes took control. The banks took control of the over the houses, only to know that the value of the home, which they were anticipating to be $1 million, is just is just $250,000. $250,000. The people who bought the mortgage-backed securities, they were in shock. What happened? Trillions of dollars evaporated. Millions lost their job. Thousands lost their home. That was a catastrophe. That's what happened when you start eating riba interest. You might see a small worldly gain, but in the long run, it will be a catastrophe, like 2008. Until this day, also, when I'm recording this video, there's a crisis. There's a crisis called the debt crisis. What I just explained you later before in this video, and I've made videos prior to this about that. U.S. alone is the citizens of U.S. alone are in $30 trillion debt. There is a debt crisis right now, where nations are in debt, not just people. Nations are in debt. That's why Allah commands: do not consume riba interest. Do trade, but don't trade in interest. Might give you a small worldly benefit, but in the long run, it will be a catastrophe. And don't worry about the banks. The banks will get bailouts by the government. They'll get the bailouts. You won't. You will lose your job. You will lose your family home. Your children who are studying on student loan might not get a job, and their interest will be doubling and tripling and quadrupling over the years. Societies collapse because of this. That's why Allah commands that engage in transactions which are backed by assets, so that stability can be in the society, so that opportunities can be equally available for everyone in the society, not just few.